Hello, hello, and happy evening to all the learned participants, humanities and sciences, HOD sir, colleagues, friends. This evening, on behalf of VGIT, HNS department, English team, welcome you all to this national webinar on rebuilding oneself during COVID-19 by Dr. Aarti Nokpal Mehta, Assistant Professor from Geetham University. And each one of you will definitely carry back from here wonderful inputs to transform your approach and outlook in these changing times to deal with family and work. We are so joyful to have amidst us Humanities and Sciences HOD Sir, Professor Rajan Prasad Sir, to support and lead us in all our efforts. I request HOD Sir to address the participants.
Yeah, that's fine. Right. Convener of this particular webinar and English faculty, and especially today's speaker and participants. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, actually. And as I said before, saying few words, like I want to congratulate every participant for participating this particular unit, event, and also I'm congratulating especially English team, because since maybe I still remember since March 15th onwards, English team is working hard to conduct different events, like even we have conducted FDP recently, and many events, like for gaining knowledge about in this particular pandemic moment. Right. So just I want to share my experience in this particular pandemic moment or pandemic stage. I still remember that's a March 15th date. Like in the afternoon, we had a meeting of around maybe like 2 o'clock, and decided that maybe college is going to be shutting down for 15 days. So I thought that was initial lockdown moment, and maybe like after April 1st, particular situation is going to be normal. but it never happened. You know, like yeah, Shafi, can you mute everyone except myself? Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir,
that
done.
never happened, you know, like even like March 15th onwards, like we initiated, you know, like many, maybe like learning events like Coursera and even online tools, and how, especially in the English department, we initiated many like learning outcomes and or learning objectives are going to be like initiated in the month of April. And I'm I'm proudly say that our English department has done many courses in this particular pandemic period, right? And especially like I want to share, I want to say one more thing, like nowadays, like in before March, like I used to use my mobile for communication, or maybe my laptop is for only doing some sort of maybe research work or something else. Now what exactly happens means this communication tool has become education tool now. So without this, like education is not possible. So that is what happening over here, right? So now I request everyone relating to this particular tools, explore tools, and even I'm looking forward for this webinar, like build ourselves, right? Because technically, like the platform is going to be now totally changed from like chalk and talk, from chalk and talk to, let's say, digital, right? So we need to tune, you know, like yeah, otherwise we don't have no place for us for in this particular, especially in the fraternity, right? So I hope you will have a good time with this particular webinar. And again, I want to thank Dr. Arti from Geetham University for joining over here. And even I am looking forward for the webinar, ma'am. And thank you for again coming over here. Participants, like explore yourself and take this opportunity and learn some sort of outcomes from this particular webinar. And once again, congratulations for English team. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for reinforcing the concept of digital transformation. We are all having a step forward towards that. Thank you so much for supporting and guiding us all this also. And before we start our session, let me take you into a brief, short profile of our speaker today. Let me introduce our resource person, Dr. Aarti Nag, hails from Hyderabad, Telangana. She has completed her education in University of Hyderabad and is a PhD in psychology. She has won several awards in her academic career, ranging from Excellence in Psychology to Young Psychologist Award. She has presented her research work in several national and international conferences. Currently, she is working as an assistant professor in Geetham University and as a counselor for the students in Geetham. So we are much waiting to listen from you, madam. You can take over.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Sujata, madam. And once again, on behalf of VJIT, I welcome all the participants and the faculty members who are engaging in this discussion today. Moreover, I think I would first extend my gratitude to the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Professor Rajendra Prasad Garu. Thank you for having me here, and Dr. Priyadarshini, Head of Department of English Department. Thank you for coordinating with me and having me on this platform. Indeed, it is going to be a very fruitful discussion, I hope, for all the participants, because none of us expected 6 months back or 5 months back the situation that we are living in right now. I mean, I remember 6 months back, this was not the normal trend where we all would connect visually or virtually through Zoom platform or GoToMeeting. But today that's the new normal, and that's how we are learning to deal with it, whether it's the faculty members, whether it's the students or the family, parents, etc. All of us are still learning. We are still in the learning phases, but also more importantly, we are trying to accept the new norm of this generation, which needs a lot of psychology. There is a lot of mental processes that take place, which we'll be seeing what happens. And before that, I'll quickly run into the presentation that I have made specifically for today. I'll start by sharing my screen, uh, after which I would like to have a healthy discussion, and I would like to take some question answers from our participants as well. Yeah. So Sujata madam has already given a briefing about me, which I'll not get into, but quickly run into the topic that I am presenting today, which is rebuilding oneself during COVID-19. So, firstly, we need to understand that the situation that we are in today, none of us expected it. Neither me, nor you, nor anyone. You can ask anybody. Nobody was prepared for it. Yet, we are trying to deal with it. So, how can we make this process better? Because it's the first time for all of us. How can we make this process better? Psychologically, what tools can we apply to make the process smooth and easygoing is what I'll be taking you through today. So, just to brief you, COVID-19, which is the coronavirus disease, which the first case came in November 2019, the name which is formulated from there, COVID-19. Currently, as of today, there are about 3.46 million cases recorded in India alone, whereas worldwide the number is huge, 24.6 million. And this is not the first time that the world is going through a pandemic or an epidemic. In the history, too, hundreds and thousands of years back, infectious diseases like influenza, plagues that happened in Europe, whether it was Spanish flu or swine flu, and then slowly coming into the 2000s where we had Ebola, Zika virus, Nipah virus. All these viruses have taken several of life in the past. The same situation, probably at a different extreme level, we are also facing today with COVID-19. So first thing we need to remember, this is not something which has happened for the first time. It has happened in the past. Probably that time people dealt with it in a different manner because there was no virtual connectivity at that time. The technology was not so grown like it is today. But today, thankfully, we have certain tools. We have a lot of educational tools that are available to make our work easy. So the most recent one that we are dealing with is COVID-19. And if you look at all these viruses, or if you look at all these pandemics, one thing that has been common in all of them, apart from the fact that they have been fatal infections, the reason why we tell them it's fatal, because the community or the society was never equipped, or it did not have a vaccine that would cure it permanently, that would go to the root of the disease and cure it. So this is one commonality that we see in most of the viruses that end up being a pandemic and taking away a lot of lives. So moving ahead, I mean, most of us know the biology or the physiological aspect of COVID. We keep hearing every day that if you have a running nose, or if you have cold, if you have cough, you need to quarantine, or if you have fever, you need to look for a doctor, because these are the basic primary signs and symptoms of COVID-19. But are we actually aware that how this pandemic or this disease is also affecting us mentally? Because I think most of the people are not even aware that apart from the physical impact that the COVID is having, it also has a psychological impact. And any illness, whether it is acute illness, whether it is chronic illness, whether a person meets with a sudden accident and loses his limb or a part of the body, or whether the person is diagnosed with cancer, or a situation like pandemic, I think all of these things, all of the illnesses or diseases need to have a health psychologist who can deal with it more efficiently. So the role of a health psychologist is seen in a biopsychosocial way, in which a health psychologist not just looks into the biology or the genetic factor, but also takes into consideration the social aspect and the psychological effect that the disease would have. Now, it is very important that we do not isolate the social aspect, because today the main thing that can stop us from the spread of coronavirus is social distancing. So obviously social life and social distancing or social connectedness has a role to play in normal day-to-day living of a human being. So my focus would be more on health psychology here per se, because my education has been in health psychology, my major has been in health psychology, which is why in every aspect of life I somewhere try to connect the role of a health psychologist and how we can deal with the current situation. So, given the current situation, I feel definitely there is a strong need for not just a psychologist but also a health psychologist. So, as I've already said, whether it is an acute disease or a chronic disease, there have been research studies, there have been a lot of data which shows that it does end up having an impact on the psychological or mental health aspect of an individual. So, more so because this particular disease that we're talking about today, COVID-19, it affects mainly, I mean, the vulnerable population, that is the older adults who are above the age of 60 or young children below the age of 10, or even at more risk the people who are healthcare providers, whether they're doctors, whether they're nurses, whether they're technicians, lab assistants, etc. These are the people who are first hand receivers of the virus, who are there at the forefront, risking their lives every day just to cure us. So, and also people who are already having some comorbid conditions, I mean, people suffering with diabetes, maybe bronchitis, or people who are already suffering with hypertension, cancer, lung disease, etc. These are the people who are more vulnerable to be attacked by the coronavirus, novel coronavirus that we have. So we need to understand that these are the focus groups that are more at risk physically, but yeah, mentally, everyone, all of us are at equal risk. There is no gender discrimination there. There is no age difference or age discrimination there, whether it's an adult, whether it's an adolescent, whether it is the geriatric population above the age of 60 or 65, or whether it is a child. All of us would have to or will have to go through some sort of mental trauma, if not today, probably in the future. So, as much as we need to have a vaccination for the physical ailment part of it, I think all of us should also be prepared to deal with the psychological consequences that the pandemic would have in future. Now, what are these effects that it may have? You may ask me. It can be basic stress that you need to deal with that arises due to the pandemic. It can be even elevated so much that it can cause anxiety, it can cause panic attacks, or even depression for that matter, which can perhaps lead to negative thoughts and suicide ideation later on. So, moving ahead, I think the most common thing that we've heard in the entire lockdown of the last 5 months is to stay home and to be quarantined, home quarantine, which has been seen as the best tool to avoid the spread of coronavirus, right? But, on a contrary note, World Health Organization has predicted and has shown in their studies that quarantine can also lead to high level of loneliness. It can lead to depression. It can also aggravate the use of drugs and alcohol for the people who are already dependent on alcohol for their daily living. And it can also lead to self harm or suicide ideations. These are some of the risk behaviors that are persistent among normal individuals. I'm not even talking about people who are already clinically diagnosed with depression or with personality disorders. I'm talking about normal people. This could have been the effect, or this can also be the effect of a longer time of quarantine if it continues, right? So, further, if we look at the social aspect, home quarantine or lockdown could also lead to substantial increase in domestic violence, or with the schools being closed, there's also a high chance of child abuse, not at outside somewhere in the school or in the open, but at home actually. And when I say this, I don't really mean the immediate family members, but probably some closer form of people who visit your house daily, which we need to take into consideration. Other than this, the group which is at the forefront, they are the ones who have the most terrible time and most challenging period that they're going through. I'm talking about the service providers, the healthcare professionals, whose well-being is at stake much more than our well-being. I think their health and well-being is at stake today. So other things that are at stake for normal human beings, how it is going to help, affect our mental health. One, there is high amount and increase in amount of lack of self-love or self-care, with people being quarantined and just limited to their smaller circle of their immediate family members or their very close friends. There's also an increase in a lot of pessimism or pessimistic thinking, negative thoughts and negative thinking. It has led to lowered self-esteem, whether you talk about normal middle class person, or you talk about, people coming from rural backgrounds, or you talk about the celebrities, whether they're actors, actresses, it has led to lowered self-esteem because there is no work for them, there is no job right now. And I'll come to that later on, maybe in my next slide. And there has been self-worth that has I'm sorry, I think there's a typo mistake here, which has decreased during the pandemic. So whether it is your self-worth, it is self-esteem, your thoughts, everything has shrunk. It has shrunk rapidly during the pandemic. Probably most of you may not even agree with me when I'm saying all of these things, but if you actually introspect, if you actually look back, to the 5 months of journey that we've come through, there would be a gradual decrease in your level of patience. There would be a gradual decrease in your level of understanding people, being more empathetic, because I think all of us are so done with the entire lockdown scenario, and all of us are, already at the height or the level where we cannot take it anymore, and we want to just go out and explore things, do what we used to do regularly before, because it was just so sudden. We just kept increasing 15 days, 15 days. I think Rajendra Garu, he was mentioning that on 15th March, they had a meeting and they thought that, the lockdown would be only for 15 days, the college lockdown. Similar thing that we faced in Geetam as well. 16th March, we had a meeting where we were told that, this is only a precautionary measure that we are taking for 15 days. It was so sudden that we could not even move our books, our laptops, and take our stuff back home to, teach the students. Similar situations, people who were studying, I'm talking about normal students who were there in hostels, they went back home so abruptly. I mean, it was just so sudden and not seen before. It was not predicted that they could not carry their laptops, they could not carry their books, and suddenly then you have examinations coming up, you have a new semester to deal with, and you have literally no material. You're just totally dependent on the virtual world or on the technology. That's it. So apart from this, health and well-being has also been at stake. So when we look at the definition of health, which is given by World Health Organization, it says that health is basically when your physical, your social, and your mental health, mental well-being, everything is balanced, everything is in place. And it is not just absence of a disease or infirmity, but also having or striking a balance between your physical life or your physical self, your social life, and your mental health. And which I would say all three of them have been drastically affected due to the constraints that have led because of the quarantine, because of the pandemic situation. There is lack of social movement. We cannot freely go out, we cannot freely meet the people we used to meet, or extended family members, etc. uh, yeah. Apart from that, moreover, there's a lot of diagnosis of COVID. So for example, a very close friend of mine, or maybe a very close family member of anybody here who has been diagnosed with who is positively diagnosed with COVID, there is certain amount of trauma, shock, rejection, denial that we all face. How much ever we might agree that all of us are prepared that someday, COVID might attack us, we might be infected with COVID. The news that is, broken to them by a doctor or by a health professional that, hey, listen, you have been diagnosed with corona positive. I think that situation itself becomes very traumatic to the person because the person is not prepared for it. How much ever we want to be prepared, there is under preparation. We are not prepared for it completely, which further causes trauma. It is I can equate it to as bad as, suddenly being attacked by somebody, suddenly being robbed in your own house, or meeting with an accident. These are not the things that we are normally prepared for. Obviously, if I drive today on the road, I have to be prepared that, I might meet with an accident someday. But when it happens, it has a huge impact on your psyche or on your mental health, which is why I have given the term trauma here. And the trauma is not just when the person itself is diagnosed, but also their family members or their close relatives, etc. So, as I said, people do not know what to do. Even if they know what to do, they do not know when and how to do it. And what makes this entire situation worse is today I have a fever and I have a cold, so I can easily get in touch with a doctor or a medical health professional. But when it comes to me being depressed or me being anxious, I would think 100 times before approaching a psychologist. So yes, there is a lot of stigma which is attached. The entire, the society that has created the hullabaloo about uh, if you visit a psychologist, you're mad, you're mental, terms which have been used very freely for people, and even people for the matter, lay person who uses strong terms like depression for everyday sadness, for normal reasons. I mean, things as big as losing a job, or probably having a breakup with your partner, or losing a loved one. We all have exploited and abused the term depression and anxiety so much that even if a person is not depressed, we push them to the situation where they could be clinically diagnosed later on as depressed. So given the situation, there is a lot of stigma, which is why they think several times before approaching for professional help, either from a counselor or from a psychologist or from a psychiatrist. But now it is the time that we question ourselves, till when is this going to continue? Are we going to live a life like this, or are we going to do something about it? Are we matured enough, uh, enough aware of the fact that a psychologist is as good as a doctor who will help you treat yourself or come out of the sadness that you're going through, come out of the stress that you're going through? I think it's time we all look at this and answer ourselves, that are we prepared for this? Are we ready to give a chance to the psychiatrist, to the psychologist, to do their job? Moving ahead, what are the social factors that make our mental health at this moment, at this lockdown period, more at stake, more at risk or vulnerable? For many people, probably thousands and millions of people who have lost their jobs, whether they're migrant workers who had to shift from their base work to their cities where they would live, or whether they are teachers who must have lost their jobs, whether they're normal employees who are in the technical aspect, who are in engineering background, uh, even if people who have not lost their jobs, whether they are the higher level people or the lower level people, even if they haven't lost the jobs, there have been salary cuts to keep the economy going normally like it should be going, to keep everybody serving. Institutions, organizations, companies, everybody is at the pressure to keep the employees happy, to keep them serving, to give them the salaries in time. Also, teachers are trying hard, employees are trying hard to meet their goals, which is really not happening. It has been a tough time to all of us. And here I give the example of people who are working, but what about people who are working for themselves, the businessman or the housewives or anybody for that matter who are working from home already? It has affected their business also drastically. And not just this, it has not just affected us in the past or in the present, that has been happening in the last 6 months, but there's always this uncertainty, because we do not know when the vaccination is going to come out. There's always this uncertainty that if the food industry is down today, or if the market is down today, I might lose my job in the future. Probably my job is also at stake. If the colleges are going to be shut for a longer time, if the students are not going to need any education from the teachers, then probably there won't be any need for teachers, because everything is moving technical today. Everything is based on robots and on bots. So we are so much dependent on the virtual world as of today, that probably there will be a time where we won't even need teachers. We won't even need so many people who are working out there in the industry. So the uncertainty that we have, that is our job safe? Are we going to, continue like this normally? It has been creating certain amount of pressure, certain amount of stress to a normal human being on a day-to-day basis, which has led to lack of sleep, anxiety, tension, not being able to manage their thoughts positively, etc. Other social factor that I think I perhaps mentioned earlier too, there's lack of social movement. We are advised to, and even with our self understanding, all of us are quarantined, all of us are, following social distancing, not meeting many people unless it is necessary, of course. So the entire lack of social movement and physical touch, because in psychology we say, even the fact that you are present for somebody, not just virtually, I'm talking about physical presence, because today we are in a time where we are virtually dependent, but before this we would be physically dependent on people. So even if the fact that somebody is there for me, somebody is listening to me, somebody is physically present with me, gives us the ease or the comfort that okay, I'm taken care of, okay, I'm being listened to, there should be a listener to your problems, right? Now, because of the situation, we cannot even do that. There is no physical touch. There's only virtual connect now. Over dependence on virtual connect, as I mentioned earlier again. um, there was a time, there was a time 6 months back, if small children or probably teenagers, adolescents, they would spend a lot of time on their mobile phones or on gadgets, laptops, etc. Teachers, their parents would be easily frustrated or irritated that why is my kid spending so much time on the mobile phone? Why can't they do something constructive like study or play? So now we don't have a choice. We need to accept that this is the new normal. There are times when I'm teaching in my classroom and students are doing something on their mobile phone, so it's very easy for them to say I'm making notes and I'm noting down whatever you're saying, ma'am. People have become so overly dependent on the virtual aspects of technology that you yourself can't help it, because we know this is going to be the new normal. This also is affecting, especially what I've seen is something very very weird, I would say, but also very interesting. Most of the elder generation, I mean teachers who are above the age of 40, 50, we need to understand as students, as parents, that yeah, we might go ahead and protest that we don't need online education for our children, but there are hundreds and thousands of teachers out there who do not even know how to use a mobile smartphone, who do not even know how to use this technology, the smart apps that we have, the teaching tools that we have, whether it's Coursera, whether it is WebEx, whether it is Zoom, etc. But each day they are learning, they are studying just to serve their students. They are learning because I remember sir was mentioning now that they had FDP program. Similar to that, in my university too, we had faculty development program, where then they gave us 2 months of intense training on online teaching applications, starting from how to use Google, how to use Skype, starting from how to use Zoom app, etc., how to use a virtual whiteboard. There is obviously financial pressure too on the teachers. We need to be updated with the technology, hence we need to spend, we need to get latest updated gadgets which has fast speed, and configuration should be in place so that we can do this video calling on a daily basis, we can share videos and content. So over dependence on virtual connect has also led to certain amount of stress, more so I would say on the teachers, or people who were not really into the system before, who were not used to using so much of technology earlier. I mean, there has been a gradual shift. There was this older time of teaching in gurukuls, and where a shishya and a guru would teach, but gradually we have moved to the western system, wherein there was a time when teachers started using, instead of blackboards, green boards and whiteboards, they would start using audiovisual methods or PowerPoint presentations. But now it's not even just limited to PowerPoint presentations, but also screen sharing, having a laptop, a smart one, etc. So the entire education system has been changing from what it was earlier and to what it is right now, and probably in the future it might be even more complicated for all of us. Apart from this, I think one another reason is a lot of family discords and conflicts. I wouldn't say this happens in every family, but yeah, I have received certain clients who tell me during the pandemic situation, during the last 6 months, that students especially, they're so used to staying alone, or they're so used to staying in their hostels or with their friends, or probably in another city. The fact that they have to spend the entire 24 hours at home with their parents, there have been a lot of adjustment issues. And believe me, this might sound very, very difficult to accept for probably the older generation, but even parents have had a tough time dealing with their children when they're at home. So it has increased fights between them, conflicts, family discords, etc. On the contrary, I am just showing you the negative aspect because I'm showing you how it takes a toll on your mental health. On the contrary, there have been families where the relationships have become better during the pandemic, because family that serves together, eats together, cooks together, they learn a lot of things doing together, right? So a lot of good things have also happened. I have had clients who have given me positive feedback saying that, I in the last 2 years I couldn't get time to spend with my family because I was always at work. I was staying in a different city. But living with them for 5 6 months, I got to know so much about my family. I got to know so much about what they like, what I like. So it has affected positively also, it has affected negatively also. There's both pros and cons of being in the quarantine situation. Moving ahead to the new normal. So I teach the subject of normal psychology to my students. And when I started my class recently, last week, I was telling them that one of the major symptom of obsession or OCD that we usually hear today, or probably must have heard earlier. OCD is some, it's a disorder when a person would continuously wash their hands or sanitize their hands. So there was this one interesting case wherein my student told me, ki, ma'am, earlier whenever anybody would touch me, this is 6 months back story, anybody would touch me, or if I touch the desk, if I touch the blackboard or anyone else's bag, I immediately sanitize my hand because I'm germophobic. I feel that I would catch the germ. But today, I mean, that time if the person used to do, people would laugh at him. His friends would, make fun of him, saying ki, "Are, isko to koi bimari hai, isko to koi problem hai, he's infected," or he's always imagining that he would be infected. But what about today? Today, that is the new normal. I mean, today, if you wash your hands 20 times a day, if you sanitize your hand 100 times a day, people would not judge you. People would not say that, this is abnormal. This is the new normal. So it's also interesting to see as a psychologist that how the norms keep changing. 6 months back, this was abnormal. And suddenly today, if you do the same act, it becomes normal. It just took one pandemic to change your entire understanding or entire theory of abnormal psychology. So, as I mentioned, the definition of normal is changing day to day. Earlier, if a person spent a lot of time on technology, if a person would click a lot of selfies, that itself was diagnosed as obsession or having some sort of disorder. Today, even if you spend entire day on your laptop or on your gadget, on your smartphone, it is not considered as abnormal. It is considered very much normal. So, what I'm trying to tell you here is gradually technology is taking over our lives, and probably in the future we won't even need human beings to contact with, or we won't even need human beings to interact with. We'll be so dependent on technology that slowly we will lose out on physical connect, which is not a good thing, I would say. And I told you, like earlier also, I was mentioning that it's very much challenging for teachers, it's very much challenging for parents to keep their children engaged all the time, and more so for the teachers, because every day they have to look for creative ways to keep their students engaged, to keep their students interacting with them, to have discussions, and extremely good and sound with their technology. And as a teacher, if you are not sound, you have to match up to their level. So definitely it's very much challenging. The new normal calls for a lot of challenges apart from adjusting to the day-to-day life. But is that all? Like, is that all the adjustment that we have to do? What more can we do? What more can a psychologist do to help you? And first thing we need to remember, there's always hope, right? I mean, if you talk about hope, you need to have hope all the time. And that is what I think most of us are doing. None of us would say ki 6 months after today, or maybe after 1 year, there won't be a vaccination. Looking at the history, coming from several pandemics in the past, from 1400s, 1500s, surpassing all of those phases, we know that this will also pass. I know there will be a lot of deaths, there will be a lot of people losing their loved ones, but yet we have the hope that maybe education and technology is so smart today that after 1 year or after 6 months, we will have a cure for this. So it's all about hope. It's all about knowing that yes, this will happen, maybe not today, but later on, sometime in future. So what is it that we need? We need patience. All of us need to be patient enough to wait for the right time that it will happen. And one interesting thing that I noticed, that people have already started to lose out on their patience. The government kept saying 15 days. People kept saying, doctors kept saying 15 days, and then everything will be normal. There will be unlock. Now unlock has happened. Everything has happened, but yet there is no vaccination. We are still waiting for it. So this has, peaked up the level of people, normal human beings, wherein they have lost patience, and now people are not even scared of COVID anymore. They are just roaming outside. They think ab hona hai to hoga hi, right? What can we do to actually make you love yourself again, to imbibe the patience in you? So one strategy, as a health psychologist, not as a psychologist alone, that I would say that works really well is meditation and yoga. So there are a lot of studies, a lot of research-based evidence that shows that meditation, yoga, they actually impact your hormones and your neurons in a certain way that it does not allow negative thoughts to flow in your brain. And immediately, a person who practices meditation or yoga for a certain minutes or hours a day, there is hell lot of difference in their personality. when compared to a person who does not do any of the physical activities that they should be doing in their regular life. Then second thing that we have is music therapy. So in where I come from, University of Hyderabad, that is Center for Health Psychology, where I did my education, entire 7 years of education, starting from my master's to my PhD. We actually came up with something called as music therapy. We had several sessions on it. We had research based evidence. We had conference and seminars based on the theme of music therapy, where people actually share their experiences and research work from across India, who showed that there are certain kinds of music that actually soothe your mind. They have proven to reduce your stress, reduce your anxiety. And I'm not talking about the normal hip hop music or the loud music, rap music that youngsters or anybody, you and me, would listen to these days. But I'm talking about certain Carnatic music, and these are not songs. I'm not talking about songs. I do agree there are some people who would love to listen to songs and it soothes them, it puts them to ease. But I'm talking about actual music, Carnatic music, that has shown on data that it does help in reducing the effect on your neurotransmitters, on the brain cells, etc. Then, as we all know, exercise does not just allow you to be healthy physically, but it also leads to a healthy mind, healthy mental health, or making your well-being more effective or more towards the positive aspect. So exercise immediately, and you will definitely see not just the result on your physical self, but also on your mental health. Now the other two techniques that I am sharing here, it's I wouldn't say it is evidence based, but it's more subjective, because these are the suggestions that probably I would give, or probably as a psychologist, what I've seen with a lot of clients and a lot of people sharing their day to day experiences. So this is not evidential data, but definitely it's descriptive in nature, which we can imbibe in our day to day life. um, as much as tiring or challenging we might find it to work from home, to do the household work, etc., it's also necessary that we start doing that together as a family or as a team, right? Teamwork always helps you. There was this amazing movie that I was watching some days back, where a task that one person had to do in group individually, it was more difficult for them to do, but when the entire group was asked to do it together and not individually, the workload divided, and if they could do it excellent in an excellent manner, right? And the last technique that I've mentioned here is token economy. Now, token economy is actually a psychological term which we use with children usually. It's a behavior modification technique. Probably, if you go and Google it, you will find lot of theory based on it. But yeah, just to brief you about it, uh, suppose you want your child or your partner or anybody to behave in a certain manner. Suppose I want to teach my child that he or she needs to engage in a particular behavior, like for example cleaning the room. So this is more like a bargain activity, or this is more like a barter system, wherein you tell the child that if you are doing this particular act, I will give you a token, and in return you can use this token later on in your life when you want something from me. For example, you need a chocolate, or for example, you need a drawing book or a coloring book. You can exchange the token to avail that. So, as parents or as caregivers, you're not giving them anything for free, but you're also teaching them the habit to earn things and to utilize them. So it's more like a barter system, wherein you teach them to do the household chores, whether it is a laundry, whether it is cleaning, cooking, or as little as just switching on or switching off the TV, geyser, etc., or keeping their own stuff clean. You can always use this system called token economy, which we can use in a day-to-day life with children. So I think more or less I've come to the end of my presentation. But yeah, these are again few suggestions that I would like to, or I would take the freedom to give all of you. Uh, we, before 6 months, all of us kept complaining that we don't have time. I mean, if somebody would ask me that, why aren't you exercising? Why aren't you healthy? I would always give the excuse that I don't have time. I'm working, and then I come back home. I need to prepare again. So most of us have used excuses for not giving time to our hobbies, not giving time to things that we like. But believe it or not, in the last 6 months, all of us have put ample time to do everything that we were doing and to do much more. So engage in your hobbies, whether it is singing, dancing, cooking, eating, anything. Engage in an activity every day. Make sure that you have a timetable wherein you give time to your hobbies as well. Now let's say even if your hobby is just listening to songs or watching movies, give time to it, engage in it, do everything and anything that makes you happy. Especially, I think the second point that I have for older adults, that is learn a new language. This has psychologically shown, again studies have shown, that older generation people, I'm talking about people who are above the age of 60, if they engage in learning a new language, especially a foreign language, if it's like French, German, or pick up any other language, even Indian language for that matter, if they start learning a new language, their brain cells are shown to be healthy. And these are the people who would not easily develop dementia or amnesia. They are the people who would not get Parkinson disease, etc. So, learning a new technique, new language, again, not just for adults. This can be used with young adults or with children as well. And for adults, I would say people who are into working professionals and employees, work on building your skills, work on your personality. So as I told, there's uncertainty for jobs. So, probably your job is at stake and your career will not support you in future. That there is always this thought, right? So work on building your skill so that you are there in the system, you are there in the market. There is a need for you in the economy. Probably take up a new course. There are hundreds of courses on Coursera, on Udemy. And what I understand is most of the colleges and institutions have also tied up with online platforms like Coursera, Udemy, wherein they've given access to the teachers, to the students to freely study and to access material. Work on building your skills, which will not just build your skill professionally or technically, but it will also enhance your personality and, yeah, create a need for yourself in the market so that you are not thrown out of your job later in the future. But most important is self care. What I've seen with many women, many ladies, or even men for that matter, I think being at home for a longer period, not meeting people, that has totally changed our lifestyle. In terms of, we have stopped taking care of ourselves. We do not groom enough. We do not take care of our health. We are just eating whatever is available, whatever is easily cooked at home, and so on. But yeah, self care is most important. As much as inflicting pain to yourself physically, either by suicide or by harming or hurting yourself, as bad as that is, not taking care of yourself also has the similar kind of effect on your brain psychologically. So it is very much important that you start taking care of yourself in terms of physical and mental health and well-being. And this, I would say, for anybody who is undergoing stress that is not managed easily by them, anybody who is undergoing anxiety, panic attack, depression, or any other symptom that they feel is not allowing them to engage normally in their day-to-day life, do not shy away, do not stigmatize yourself, because you're not just doing wrong to yourself, you're creating the view to the society that it is not okay to go to a psychologist or to consult a counselor. Even if you see symptoms in your children or in your family members, please motivate them to seek professional help. I mean, come on, if we are facing trouble with our physical health, would we just stay at home or would we go to a doctor? You have the answer for yourself, so seek help if you need help. And sometimes what I've seen is, even if you are shy to not to go to a psychologist, even just venting out your emotions or speaking to somebody who's really close to you, it actually helps. Again, it has its own drawbacks and limitations, that we are only virtually connected and not physically easily connected. So it might have its own limitations. But yeah, theories from Freud or from Carl Jung, they've shown that, just being with somebody unconditionally and giving them the positive feedback that they need by listening to them, these are the small gestures that you can do with your loved one. The emotional support, that itself creates a whole lot of difference in their self care, in their self esteem, in their motivation. So with this, I think with most of the techniques that I've discussed, I've tried to keep it a balance between both the research-based psychological aspect and more subjective too. So I've tried to give a balance between the objective views and subjective views, and I've presented in front of you. I hope that most of you would use any of these techniques in your day-to-day life to make your life better and to rebuild yourself during the pandemic situation. But to conclude with, I wouldn't just want to end the session this way. I got a very interesting video which I'll be playing now. It's there on YouTube, and it's more or less the entire summary of what I just spoke. So given the opportunity, I'll stop sharing this and I'll play the video for all of you. Just a minute. Probably somebody can give me feedback if my YouTube is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just play it. Just bear with me for another 5 minutes and then we'll end the session.
The current challenges brought about by COVID-19 for people all around the globe are unparalleled and have caused fear, anxiety, and uncertainty for so many of us. We are all going through this together, and it's important to understand that you're not alone in how you're feeling right now, and that there are practical, healthy ways to cope with these emotions. The COVID-19 pandemic has created unprecedented change and a need for a response from everyone around the globe. Many of us are worried about our loved ones and our livelihoods, and there is no one right way to cope with what we're experiencing. Remember, however you're feeling, there are others that feel the same. You are not alone. Here are a few voices of people struggling to cope during this time. Some days I'm okay. I'm doing my best to adjust. But yesterday, I couldn't stop crying. This all just seems so unfair, and I feel so angry that this is happening to us. I'm struggling to care for my kids and work from home at the same time, and I'm worried about my parents' health. I watch the news and it just seems so hopeless. I don't know how to keep it together.
I feel so lost and sad. So much has changed. I used to have dinner every week with my family, but now I can't be in the same room with them. I really miss them.
I'm missing out on my prom and my graduation. I've literally been looking forward to these things my whole life, and I'm heartbroken.
With everything going on now, I just can't stop my thoughts. And physically, my chest hurts, and I can't breathe. I get nauseous thinking about what could happen to my family and my friends.
Before this happened, I used to worry all the time about getting sick. Into absolute terror. My heart races every time I have to go to the store. Home with me. I can't stop washing my hands.
No matter how exhausted I am, my sleep is still terrible. I just keep picturing all the things that could possibly happen. Will I ever get a good night's sleep again?
I've been through so much already. I don't know how I'm going to deal with flashbacks are getting worse and worse.
Honestly, I feel like I'm more comfortable in times of crisis. I'm not sure why I don't feel as upset as everyone else does right now.
I don't know when or if everything is going to get back to normal. I feel like the weight of the world is on my shoulders. How many people are going to be affected? What does this mean for me and my family?
We've just heard some of the ways people are being affected by the COVID-19 situation. Here are some things that are helpful in building resilience during times of crisis and intense stress. There are a lot of things outside of our control right now, which can be scary. By focusing on the things we can control, we can refuel ourselves and become more grounded and able to focus and cope with all of the things we can't control.
One of the most important actions within your control is to follow CDC guidelines to reduce your chance of being exposed or passing the virus on to others. Use social support. No one should go through this alone. There is absolutely no shame in talking about what you're going through with your friends and family. And it's important to be there for others too. Video chat and phone calls are a great way to stay connected. Prioritize self-care. Staying on a regular schedule, exercising, eating a healthy diet, keeping a sleep routine, and taking time to meditate or pray are all important, now more than ever. Be gentle with yourself. During times like this, you will have good days and bad days. Your emotions are most likely heightened at this time. Try not to compare your life to what you see on your friends' social media feeds. There is always more going on behind screens. Helping others can bring joy and gratification. Do what you can to help others, even if it's something as simple as lending an ear or making someone smile. Be kind to the people around you, especially the folks who are still out working, to ensure we all have what we need. If each day feels like an uphill battle, it may help to seek out professional support. To continue helping during this time of social distancing, many mental health providers are using telemental health in their practice. If you can't afford therapy or need to talk to someone right away, you can call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline 24 hours a day at 1-800-273-8255. You are not alone in how you are feeling. There are things you can do and resources you can use to cope during this challenging time. Check out our library for more videos to learn more about mental health, dealing with isolation, and ways to cope. We're all in this together.
Yeah. So with this, I take the opportunity again to thank everyone who have been patiently listening to my presentation. And I'm open for some questions or discussions if time permits. Over to you, ma'am.
Any of the participants, you can raise hand or unmute yourself for the Q&A session. You're welcome.
Dr. Vishwanath sir has got a question. Sir, I am unmuting you. Please, you can ask the question.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay. So, Dr. Aarti, madam, it's a decent and a simple and nice presentation. So, my question is, how to engage my child in a fruitful way? Actually, I have prepared a schedule for him, covering his academic activities as well curricular activities. But unfortunately, the schedule is failed. So, how to engage him in a proper manner? So I prepared a schedule for him, and we ran the schedule for a few days, but slowly the schedule is failed. Will you please suggest how to engage children in a fruitful way?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, sir. I think this is one problem that most of the parents would be facing currently. But as a psychologist, I always believe that when parents come to me saying, give counseling to my child needs to change their behavior, and the same parents do not understand the techniques of confidentiality, and they want us to give all the information what the child has told us, and basically mold the child the way the parent wants. So let me first tell you that counseling does not work that way. Same way, I think if you are saying that you have made a schedule for your child but it worked for a few days and then it is not working, I think you also need to introspect and see that is the schedule child friendly, or is it just serving your purpose? If your purpose is that the child should be engaged in academics the entire day, or should have the particular type of meal that you want, or the particular timing that you have decided for the child to play, you also need to understand, is the child ready for it? Is that what the child wants? Probably the child wants 50-50 time for play and for study. Probably the child is not comfortable enough using the technology and still wants to go back and have the physical classroom, or there can be several reasons why the schedule is not working. But when we do career counseling and career guidance with adolescents, with children, etc., we usually give the children the freedom to prepare and set their own goals. So it's more like you give them the end product, that listen, you need to get so many marks, or you need to at least pass the examination so that you will be successful someday. And based on the child's capability, your role is only as a mediator. Your role is only to guide them and help them to prepare the timetable, but allow them to prepare their own timetable. And again, your role is only to motivate them to follow the timetable. Beyond that, as a parent or as a teacher, I think we should understand that we are more of facilitators, and less of giving them the product, the end product, or else they will never learn how to reach there. So I would say the only way you can do is motivate them to achieve their goals and not set the goals for them. Okay, so I think one question that has come up is their kid is 14 years old and how to keep the kid motivated. I think one technique that I mentioned is token economy, which we use in behavior modification of people or children who do not present the right kind of behavior in schools and in colleges. So token economy works really well, which you can utilize, which you can use. To understand and to learn the entire therapy which a psychologist does token economy, because this is something that a psychologist uses for behavior modification. That cannot be done in the session currently, but probably you can find a lot of material which is there. You can watch a lot of videos that how to use this technique, how to use this therapy at home with your children. I think once you learn that and once you start using that, probably your child will be more motivated to do their task. I think this is the session won't be enough to train you on that therapy. Yeah. Any other questions that we can take up?
We have got a question from YouTube, ma'am.
Hmm.
Hello.
Yes, yes, sir.
We
Can
have
you?
got a question from YouTube, madam, from Purushottam Reddy.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Purushottam Reddy, he is asking, Madam, how can we improve the mental health among the rural illiterate people during this pandemic?
Mhm. Yes, I think this is another level of discussion that we might get into, because there's a lot of discrepancy from social backgrounds that we come from the geographical locations that we come from. In fact, very interestingly, today in one of my classes, I was teaching my students about resilience and how to face adversities and become resilient. But while I was teaching, I also told them that because of these social uh, inequalities, or because of the social disturbance in the society itself, it may not work very well with some people who are coming from rural backgrounds, some people who are there in the urban settings, and middle class people who have the facilities. So for instance, I'll give you the example of my household help. She had to, because she did not have a laptop, because she does not have a smartphone, she has to skip the entire year of academics for her child, because she thinks that her child will not learn anything online. So it's also the mindset that we need to change for the rural background, which would probably take time, maybe not today, but maybe 10 years or 20 years. It might take some time to reach out to every section of the society and to make them aware of the growing technology and mental health. First, it is more important for people who are educated to come out of their baggage and to come out of their box from their closet and accept that mental health is a thing today. Yes, sir.
Madam, here is the last question. We can consider it because we are running behind the time.
Yes, sir.
From Pratap Singh. Pratap Singh, sir, you are unmuted. You can ask your question, sir.
Yes, sir, Pratap, sir. Or, or he can probably put the question in chat box, sir. I think he's not connected or something. So can we move on if there are any more questions?
Shafi sir?
Here we have another question from YouTube, madam.
Right. Can you read the question, sir? Because I'm not able to view it.
How can you teach rural people who think that pandemic is a myth?
I think I don't know. Have you read this somewhere in news that rural people are thinking that pandemic is a myth? Because if we actually look at the statistics, the spread is lesser in the rural area than in the urban area. And if you go back to history, historically also in the 1400s and 1500s, the society was not as developed and people were aware of the pandemic, people were aware of how influenza spreads, Spanish flu spreads, and they've come out of it. So I think the one who has posted this question probably it's their thinking or their thought that it's a myth, because I think today, starting from my household help to auto walas to people in the villages to a farmer, everybody is aware. I mean, everybody is well aware that coronavirus is spreading and we need to do something. Yeah, there are people who are probably, thinking that they will not catch the virus because they're immune enough or because they're maintaining all precautions, which is why probably they may not follow certain behaviors like social distancing or putting on the mask and maintaining hygiene. Probably that can be a reason, but it's not a myth that people in rural areas think that they will not catch the virus. Definitely, because the overall rate of progress has also been better in the rural areas than in the urban setting, I feel. Yes, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you so much, sir. And once again, I think I will thank the entire fraternity of Vidya Jyoti Institute of Technology for having me on this webinar, wherein I could share my views and at least make a small effort in educating everyone out there. Thank you so much.
Uh, uh, wow, that was such a pleasant, flawless flow we were into. Thank you, Dr. Aarti. It was so wonderful traveling into the significance of mental fitness for a holistic well-being, the balance of thoughts that you have mentioned. I hope and wished all our participants are benefited and they have some takeaway from here. Thank you again. Thank you so much, and hope to see you soon in our college premises, definitely for a wonderful session with you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
And to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of VGIT management and the Integrated Humanities and Sciences Department English team, we thank academic fraternity, other participants for the willing presence and providing encouragement in such endeavors. We are so grateful to all the viewers. Endless gratitude to our influential director, Sir Dr. E. Sai Baba Reddy Garu. Thank you, Principal Dr. A. Padmaja Ma'am, for a relentless push. Thank you, HOD Sir, Professor Rajan Prasad Sir, for your demonstrative support. And thank you, Dr. Indra Priyadarshini Ma'am, the convener of this webinar, the very famous meticular planner. Thanks to all our colleagues in our department, HNS department, the very prompt English team, and the essential technical support, Dr. Surendra Sir, Dr. Sushil Kumar, and Mr. Shafiullah Sir. Trust you all remain hale and hearty, wishing everybody good health and a very happy weekend. Signing off, VGIT Team English. And the feedback link will be provided, participants and the viewers. Please fill in your feedback links and you can avail your e-certificate.
Feedback link is available in chat box. YouTube viewers, you can take a feedback link from the chat box there. 1 minute time is given to fill the feedback form. Here I ends live steering, madam.